It's time
for 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here's your host, Craig Allen.
All right, Matt, big weekend of MMA ahead, and listen, we're very excited for it. I mean, listen, we've got UFC Raleigh coming up in about a half hour. The prelims are starting in Canada. You can catch them. There's Fight Pass, there's TSN, and then there's more TSN. In the States, ESPN Plus, and a combination there. So, with that, you have, like I said, UFC Raleigh. You've got Bellator 238 coming at you live from the Forum in Inglewood, California. Always good shows there.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty neat with this one, too, because we saw it last night. If you're following along on Periscope over on Twitter, it was neat because the ceremonial weigh-ins that they had, normally they don't do that. They did it exactly like the UFC does. Cool. So it was kind of neat to see that, something that you don't always get from Bellator. And yeah, just another wrinkle into it. I mean, it'll be interesting, too, the way that Bellator is set up right now, the fact that now with Viacom and Showtime, Steven Espinoza from Showtime is going to be kind of the head honcho in charge of what's going to go on with Bellator. So you're going to have Scott Coker reporting to him. It'll be interesting to see if they bring in many changes. But already to start 2020, they had something like that in such a big event over in Inglewood. We talked about it with our Fight Night Picks 2-minute, 5-minute predictions. The fact that we're going to be tuning into Bellator tonight.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yes, the UFC starts a little bit earlier, but at the second time, or by the same token, it's very interesting that they're going that route.
It is, and especially with normally when this happens, UFC always overwhelmingly has the better cards, so it's not really that hard of a choice. But for once, it's really nice to see that Bellator put together something that's not only competitive against the UFC's product, but probably superior to it.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what we get out of the UFC, out of Bellator tonight. We're going to be previewing Fight of the Night, the storylines, top prospect, title implications, and your Fight Night picks. Typically what we do with Fight Night Picks Kicks, it's going to be a quick show. It's going to be 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah, maybe we go over a little bit. But if you want to have the conversation over on Twitter, Periscope, or on YouTube, we're streaming live on all those platforms, as well as sportsbooth.tv. You can find us there as well. Listen, Matt, I mean, let's give a rundown of Fight Night Picks. There's a lot of people that are new to the channel, a lot of people that maybe found us just through the fight predictions. I'm your host, Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. With me, as always, Matt Allen FNP. You can find him there as well. Why isn't his name at the bottom? Because this was originally supposed to be his solo show, but we're both going to be tuning into the fights tonight. So some of the things that we've done, we started off with just the audio podcast. Way back when, 2 hours of me speaking right into a computer. Nobody really paying attention. Then we branched out, started a YouTube channel. We were doing fighter interviews. We were doing live streams, fight companions, all sorts of great stuff. We still do some things like that. We're also going to be covering, a live event coming up here in the next couple of weeks. You've got NEF 42 Symphony of Destruction coming at you live from Portland, Maine on February 8th. I'll be there covering that. It's the return of the Bermudez Triangle. Manny Bermudez is going to be taking on Bruce Boynton, your CES champ. They're going to be fighting for the NEF lightweight champ. It's Bermudez's first fight outside of the UFC. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. FLA at Atlantic Fight. Interesting to see some picks tonight. FLA has a show that same night. They're going to be live in Truro, Nova Scotia, so definitely check that card out as well. It's a shame I can't make it. I'm going to be flying out a week before, out of Portland, flying back in. It was just how the cookie crumbled that way. But can't wait to see more shows from FLA, so be sure to check them out if you're on the East Coast of Canada. Now, Matt, Fight of the Night, that's our first thing. We have two different cards. Typically, we'll be doing these shows a half hour before, maybe a UFC card, maybe a Bellator card, what have you. But we have so many good fights coming up. The three that I threw together, Corrales and Archuleta, that's one that's out there. Landwehr and Burns. And then the other one that I threw out there was Pettis and Khashakyan. And then I put other explained. So I want to hear from people in the comments, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Periscope or Sports Booth or Twitter. What is your Fight of the Night, Matt? If we go down through this, let's look at the UFC just quickly. If you could give me just two picks for Fight of the Night, what would you go with?
So, not that it's going to be Fight of the Night, but a fight that I'm definitely interested in is Nick Lentz moving back down to 145 fight Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen's been on this massive streak, and honestly, I kind of expect this to be a one-sided fight, but Nick Lentz, durable as all get out. Like, he can take a shot, and he's known for, just kind of moving through a lot of damage. So it could end up being a really fun, kind of a brawl-type fight. Another one that you really got to look out for, and I'm not this is really a sleeper pick, but RDA versus Michael Chiesa, it's a really fun fight because Michael Chiesa hasn't really fought an upper echelon fighter yet at 170. You got to think his last 2 fights were against Carlos Condit, who's not the same as he used to be, and then Diego Sanchez, who actually put up a decent fight, but he was completely outmatched by Michael Chiesa. He was just a lot younger and a lot better in most aspects of MMA, but I feel like this is such a leap forward for him, going from Diego Sanchez, who basically kind of does what RDA does, but not nearly as well. Like, they're both just really well-rounded. They have good jiu-jitsu and whatnot, but RDA takes it to a whole new level. So it'd be really fun to see what his game plan is, because as a grappler, you got to think, and I know the 7-minute math, but Kevin Lee was able to choke out Michael Chiesa. Controversial or not, he was still able to...
Mary Yamasaki, what are you doing?
I know. But RDA was able to submit Kevin Lee, so that just tells you what kind of a grappler RDA is, and I don't think he ever gets the credit just because his stand-up is so good. So no matter where this fight goes, I feel like RDA probably has the advantage, but I think it's going to be a great fight.
And I mean, to counter that, a lot of people saying in the YouTube comments for our 2-minute prediction there, the fact that Case is long, rangy, he might be able to push the pace. They also say that Mustache RDA is a can, so those are just some of the comments that are out there. I think those are 2 pretty good picks. Arnold Allen, Nick Lentz. Allen's about a -250 to -300 favorite, which isn't a surprise. I mean, he was originally training for a tougher fight against Josh Emmett when he got the call to take on Lentz, and Lentz was matched up with a lesser opponent too, so it's kind of a tough one.
And when you think, like, Nick Lentz is at the stage of his career that Gilbert Melendez was when he fought Arnold Allen, so it's a decent step up in competition, because I do think this will be slightly more competitive, but I really do think that it's going to be a decent fight.
Yeah, it should be a really good one. If we continue on with Fight of the Night, we'll look at Bellator. Actually, I'll give you my 2 for the UFC. So mine... The first 2 fights on the card are great. I really think so. Cool. Nate Landwehr, Herbert Burns. A lot of people telling us over on YouTube that they're really high on this one. A lot of people are saying that Nate Landwehr... One person went as far as to say that he's kind of like a Conor McGregor. Another person went as far to say he's kind of like a Mike Perry, because he just throws down, cautious,
I love that
reckless abandonment, caution to the wind type of guy. And, you're going to get a more technical guy in Herbert Burns, but it should be a really good fight. And we've talked about Herbert Burns in the past. Gilbert's kind of like that guy that we said it for the longest time. He has all the tools. When will he bring them together? It's happened.
He figured it out.
Now, for Herbert, he's in the UFC. Maybe everything comes together, but that's a very interesting fight.
Or it could be like Diego Lima, and Gilbert could be like Douglas Lima. We really don't know until we see him fight a certain level of competition. I think Nate Landwehr is a good start for him.
Exactly. Nate Landwehr is like fight ready, like a guy that could have been in the UFC. Ready. And then the next fight, Brett Johns and Tony Gravely. People are going back and forth with their picks on YouTube, and I really like that fight. I think it should be a great one, and maybe if you miss those picks, check them out, because the fight's going to be starting here anytime. Now, that's for the UFC. There's all sorts of great fights there. If we look at Bellator, there's a lot of fun ones. Even on the prelims, I know, people on YouTube, not a fan of us throwing shade at Chris Avila and picking Anthony Taylor, but...
Oh, my bad, he's 7-8.
That's the way to go. If we look all the way through, though, and you're looking on the main card, there's 2 fights that really stick out to me. Yeah. Do you agree?
I think I know what you're going to say, so I might as well just give my fight of the night. I think it is Archuleta versus Corrales. That fight is just designed to be a fight of the night, because when you look at what Corrales does well, he's a pretty heavy puncher. He's got good volume, though. He really does everything well, and Archuleta is the same thing. Archuleta just keeps on going forward. He gets hit a lot. That's the one thing that you do kind of have to worry about, and we saw him get dropped multiple times in that Patricio fight, but I mean, he was fighting... champ, so no shame in losing, and it was a phenomenal fight too, so I really think that's your fight of the night for both organizations, honestly.
And for me, it's a toss-up, and I threw them in as my 3 plus other explain. Archuleta, Corrales, or Pettis, Khashakyan. I could see either of them being a fight of the night. I think those are the 2 most competitive fights out of either UFC or Bellator card.
Oh, I agree 100%. But if the main event makes it out of the first or second round, like we kind of said this about Cowboy and Connor last weekend, if the main event makes it out of the first round, and if Julia Budd doesn't get finished, or if Cyborg doesn't get just taken down and completely ground and pounded, that fight's going to devolve into sort of a brawl, and I think it'll be really exciting.
I want to stand up for us just for a second, because if you go watch the Julia Budd, Chris Cyborg 5-minute prediction, which we normally do, or we always do for the main event, or if it's a title fight. So UFC recently, when we had 3 title fights, all 5-minute videos. For Bud and for Cyborg, Chris Cyborg went out, found a video that had about 60 views at the time, and said, I'm only good at one thing. So, somebody actually went through and watched that video just to say that.
Here's the thing. Why don't fighters ever say good things about them?
Yeah, that's true. But the other thing is, obviously, that's an oversimplification of 5-minute video. The one thing that you see from Chris Cyborg in the majority of her fights is the fact that...
she runs over women.
Yeah, her stand-up is so good that she doesn't need to use everything else. And what's Julia Budd good at? Right. She's a more well-rounded person, and you see that in her fight. So that was kind of the point there. But yeah, to go back, my fight of the
We're
night.
not saying Chris Cyborg doesn't have all those tools. It's just her one tool is so good, she never has to use the other ones. That's all.
Yeah, credit where credit's due. But yeah, so my fight of the night, I'll go with Archuleta and Corrales, and then we'll get into a couple of the questions over on YouTube. So Oliver Sell, you're tuning in every week, and we certainly appreciate it. The fact that Aldo is getting a title shot makes me sick. Hopefully there's some backlash. It does injustice to Aljo, Jan, and Sandhagen. Plus, I'd like to see Pedro Munoz step in to fight Vera. Yeah, listen, making title fights when guys are on 2-fight losing streaks, it's ridiculous.
Okay, but I think we do need to separate the two. I don't think Yoel Romero deserves a title shot, but I'm not against the fact that he is getting one, because when you do think, his last fight was a title eliminator, and the guy who won a close fight can't fight. So who's your other number one contender? Because there's no one really ahead of him. Jared Cannonier beat Jack Hermanson, which is a good win, don't get me wrong, but it's one of those wins that says, okay, I still need one more. And if he does fight Darren Till and wins that fight, then then he can go for a title shot. So I don't fully agree that Yoel Romero's getting one, but I can sort of justify it in my head. With Aldo, I can't at all. I understand it was a close fight, but when you look, at least Romero's not skipping other contenders, really. Aldo's skipping about 7 of them. Like, bantamweight's such a good division. It's very talent stacked, and there's so many good guys at the top of the division who could all make an argument. Even Marlon has a more.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like at 135, I get it. Moraes lost to the champ Cejudo, and Cejudo hasn't fought since. So maybe people, pretty badly.
And that would be it.
People might not want to see it, but for Jose Aldo to lose at 145, come down, and then lose again, and then, oh, you know what? The people want a title shot, so let's give it to him.
No, it's the fights in Brazil, and they need someone to sell tickets.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I say that?
Yeah, it's stupid. Well, Marlon.
I know, it makes no sense.
Or Pedro Munoz, but yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And then Yoel Romero at middleweight. Yeah, if we look at the division just quickly, Whitaker's out, Costa's out, Romero's in, Cannonier's healthy, Till, but he just beat Gastelum. Hermanson's on a loss, Gastelum's on a loss, Brunson's got a fight.
It's not perfect at middleweight, but you can justify Romero getting that fight. At bantamweight, there's no situation whatsoever in which Jose Aldo should be fighting for the title.
And it's one of those spots where it's easy to say, you know what, it makes sense just because it's Yoel Romero and he's scary. And you want to keep Israel Adesanya fresh, plus there's a good chance that he wins.
I think we can all agree, if Adesanya goes out there and not only finishes Romero, it's going to add a massive part to his resume. If Cejudo goes out there and finishes Aldo, it's nice, but it's definitely not prime Aldo anymore. Like, we've seen Romero lose, but every single one of his losses have still been competitive. Aldo's been stopped multiple times by the best in the world. McGregor stopped him, Holloway stopped him, and we haven't seen him fight anyone near their level since. I know he lost to Volkanovski, but he didn't really take that much damage. So it's going to be interesting. Honestly, I think Aldo's kind of a bad matchup for Cejudo, so I wouldn't be surprised that it's one of those things where he ends up winning, even though we're saying he doesn't deserve the title shot, if I'm being very honest. But it's just a weird situation all around.
Continuing with the chat, Aaron Ramirez says, what do you think about Junior versus Blades goes the distance? Maybe TKO, but in rounds 3 or 4. We were talking about it before the show. Pretty sure it's probably going to go that way. And a lot of people, I put it out there on Twitter, a lot of people are picking Blades. A lot of people in the gambling community are picking Blades. And that's going to get to one of the next questions. He's a 3-1 favorite. I'm not going to offer any gambling picks. I just got an email from the MMA JA, so things seem to be moving along, and I'm a part of the MMA Journalists Association, so these picks are, for me, they're just for fun, and I'm just throwing them out there. But in terms of that fight, I see Blades winning it. It's going to go past the first round. Blades is going to win it. Unless JDS throws a lucky shot, I don't see it going any other way.
And that's the thing. The problem is, if Junior Santos throws a lucky shot, he throws them all the time. Like, Junior Santos has such heavy hands and really fast hands, still at this age, sort of advanced in his career. I was telling Craig, we said this on our 5-minute prediction. I think Curtis Blades is going to win. He's probably going to finish JDS. But if I somehow fell asleep and woke up in the morning and heard, JDS knocked him out in the first round, I wouldn't be overly surprised. It's just, I'm pretty sure the wrestling of Blades is eventually going to get Junior Santos. And we saw, like, when Blades really opens up with his ground and pound, we saw that against Alistair Overeem, he causes some damage. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough night if you're a JDS fan.
So the next one from Matthew S. What are your 2 most confident fights, Bellator or UFC? I'm not going to continue the sentence, but if we're going to go through it, same thing as possible first-round finishes from Tushar Singh. We'll get into those. So the 2 that you're most confident with, if you're looking at it just quick, I would say
RDA over Michael Chiesa. I think he's going to win no matter what. I just feel like the pressure. Michael Chiesa is not great at moving forward. We saw that in the Masvidal fight. We saw that in the Pettis fight. I know I'm using like 2 of the best fighters in the world, but still, RDA does one thing really, really well. Pressure you up against the cage, hit, takedown, rinse and repeat over and over and over until you get exhausted. And if I had to bet money, like, I guarantee you RDA has better cardio than Chiesa. That's the one thing I can guarantee you about that fight. So just RDA is going to be able to keep a pace that Chiesa won't be able to withstand.
I wouldn't say that's in my top 2. I'd say 1, Lucia Pudzilova and Justine Kish. We haven't seen Justine Kish in a long time. Pudzilova's a lot bigger of a fighter. She's lost 3 in a row compared to Kish's 2, but still.
I do think you're right. It's just one of those fights that neither woman has knockout power or real big submission skills, so it's going to be a decision, and it's kind of too risky to say that that's your lock of the week. Just personally, I do agree with you, though. I think Pudilova is going to win that fight quite easily. That's one of those riskier ones because neither woman has, real big fight finishing skills.
Alex Perez is another one on the main card. I mean, this is a chance for Jordan Espinosa to get back into the groove, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it. I think Alex Perez is a much better fighter. And then if you look at the Bellator card, if you want like real locks, like somebody
Aaron Pico is going to beat Daniel Carey. I know,
and there's odds on it now.
The fight's closer than the odds suggest, but I still feel like Pico's going to go out there and probably run him over. The only guys we've seen Pico have problem with are currently probably the best prospect in all of MMA, and Henry Corrales, who has way more experience than him and just hit him with a really good shot. So I feel like he is going to get back on track. I would like to see them kind of slow his development a little bit. Don't do what they're doing with MVP because that's just ridiculous at this point, but kind of that same idea. Like, he doesn't need to fight title, eliminators and challengers every single fight. Like, we can kind of build him up.
If you want an easy one that's for sure thing, Montel Jackson, Felipe Claris. There's one, and if I'm wrong, you can tell me.
Is that a first round finish though, do you think?
No, I don't think so.
So possible first round finishes. I think the main event could be, but the problem is it could go either way because Julio Sanchez has to throw an overhand right to catch Curtis Blades, and Blades can just take him down and elbow him. But other than that, like, it's really hard to predict finishes too.
It's really hard to predict first round finishes. I mean, Jamal Hill, Darko Stozic, it could be. But at the same time, Stozic been training at Team Elevation for the last few months, which people have been quick to throw out there on YouTube.
I'll tell you this. If Adam Boric and Darren Caldwell ends in the first round, it's going to be with Boric winning. There's no way in my mind that Darren Caldwell goes out there and either TKOs him or submits him right away. He might be able to in like the third round, but I really don't see it happening in the first round. But Adam Boric could go out there and throw a head kick and knock him out.
Same thing. Gravely and Johns is one that could end quickly. And then another one, if you want to throw them out there, if you're looking over at Bellator.
Oh, easy. Raymond Daniels. That fight's going to end first round. He's going to win. He's going to knock out Jason King.
People taking Jason King. So we continue on. We've given you our fight of the night. I'm going with Archuleta and Corrales. Matt's kind of thinking along the same lines. It could be that. It could be the Pettis Khashakyan fight. If we move into storylines, there's some interesting ones here because what we said, I mean, you look at this, you've got the Bellator Featherweight Grand Prix quarterfinals, Boric and Caldwell. Certainly storylines there. It's built in. The winner... We'll see who they face next. You've got some fun fights in that Grand Prix as well. I mean, just look at what AJ McKee's done in the last 2 years. That guy's kind of set up prime for success and a favorite to end up in the finals.
I need AJ McKee to fight Adam Boric at some point within the next 8 months because those guys would throw down so hard. Do you think Cyborg will confidently? Here's the thing. Originally, I did. I thought Cyborg would. And the more that I thought about it, because Craig keeps on putting these demons in my head, I think Julia Budd has a really good chance if it goes past the second round. Here's my problem, though. She has to get through 10 minutes of an absolute storm. But if she's able to weather it, then she's going to be fine for the rest of the fight. And I do think she could win a decision if she just sort of... Julia Budd can't make this an exciting fight. That's the big thing. And it's unfortunate to say, but Julia Budd's not going to win some big slobber knock with Chris Cyborg. There's only one woman on planet Earth who's able to do that, and that's Amanda Nunes. So if Julia Budd wants to win, she's going to have to use a lot of cage control, a lot of, takedowns, sort of make Chris Cyborg hold her weight for as much as possible, and then perhaps in the later rounds kind of move on. It's a tough fight for both women, though.
If we're looking and continuing with storylines, typically the point, the thing that we'll do, we'll go through our segments and then we'll get into the comments. So we talked about the Bellator Featherweight Grand Prix, Sergio Pettis and his Bellator debut. Now I said it, Carlos Diego Ferreira taking on Anthony Pettis. Diego Ferreira is going to win. Everybody said I was crazy. He was a favorite, but still.
He was like a 2-1 favorite.
Yeah, he got the win, but a lot of people were picking Anthony Pettis. Now you have Sergio making his Bellator debut. He's taking on Alfred Khashakyan, a guy who can hit hard, who's finished his last 3 fights, who didn't win on Contender Series, and the losses that he has are to UFC guys. So that's what makes it interesting. Plus, Khashakyan's a guy that fights at 135. Sergio Pettis at 135 hasn't been great in the UFC.
He fought once, though.
That's a big storyline, too. And then if you look down through the card, there's a lot of fun ones. Like the fact that Aaron Pico is 4-3, and he just keeps getting finished, but they're by some of the better guys in the division, and 2 guys that are fighting on the main card here. It'll be interesting to see how he makes out against Daniel Carey. That's not as imposing or doesn't. He's not going to knock him out in the first round.
Exactly.
But there's always that uncertainty of, can he finish him? Can he end up getting a submission, throw something in there too? So a lot of fun storylines there. And then there's so many UFC debuts on this UFC card.
Too. I mean, even with Sarah McMahon, she's been out for almost, 2 years now? So it'll be interesting just to see how she comes back.
Yeah, and you look at it, I mean, you've got Landwehr and Burns. You've got Tony Gravely. You've got, Daquan Townsend that's been out for a long time. Jamal Hill making his UFC debut. So many fun fights on that card. There's a lot of interesting storylines, and that's the point of the segment or the question. Is there anything else that sticks out to you?
I really do think kind of Cyborg going to Bellator is the biggest story, just due to the fact that there were so many kind of arguments and problems that she had with the UFC and sort of with upper management. It's kind of nice to see her go back to Scott Coker, who she sort of developed her career with, really. And I think it'll be interesting because, not to say that it's more WWE, but Bellator really lets you promote who you are a little bit more, because you do get the walkout and you get your promotions or your sponsorships and whatnot. And we know that she has like Dunkin' Donuts as a sponsor, Chris Cyborg. Like, she has some really big sponsorships. So I think it'll be really fun to see how she makes it out in Bellator, because I don't think she went there to not be champ, if that makes any sense. Like, I think she went there to be champ, rule, and then her next loss, I really do think is probably going to be her last fight.
The interesting thing with Cyborg, too, and if you want to look at it from a Bellator perspective, you want to look at this fight, if you looked at their stare downs that they had very, very early on, before the weigh-ins, before any of that, Cyborg went up, she wore heels, and Julia Budd was a lot bigger of a fighter. Now, I know at weigh-ins, they both weighed under 145 pounds. If I'm not mistaken, Cyborg weighed 143 and change or so.
I think so. But
and it wasn't an issue for both of them making weight, but it was very interesting there to see. And if Budd's going to win, we're talking about her being physically imposing. She has to use every single tool in her game plan. It sets up a good fight, and again, those odds just don't make a whole lot of sense. They're too far apart, but Bellator odds they rarely do make sense.
They rarely do. And the thing that worries me in that fight for Julia Budd, because I'm kind of talking myself into thinking she might win, she has to avoid getting damaged while in the clinch, because that's something Cyborg's really good at. She's not good at breaking the clinch, but once you're in there, she's going to throw elbows. She's going to make it hell on you, so you're really going to watch out for it. But I think that's going to be a phenomenal fight. I'm really excited.
So if we get into the next part, we're looking at the top prospect on this card. We get about 8 minutes left before the fight starts. If we're looking at the UFC card, there is all sorts of top prospects. I mean, the fact that Nate Landwehr, Herbert Burns debuts, but are they really prospects? Same thing with Tony Gravely. He's got 24 professional fights, so it's interesting if you look up through. I would say on the UFC card, you're right. Arnold Allen, very promising guy at 145 pounds. He's ranked right now. He's primed with a win to face again somebody that's difficult, like a Josh Emmett that he was supposed to face, a top 10 guy. I would also say the winner of Darko Stozic and Jamal Hill, they're kicking off the main card. It's a big fight. That could be a potential top prospect in the UFC. Do you have any other picks on that card?
No, Bellator is much more prospect heavy with top tier prospects. The more because when you just look through, I mean, Curtis Millender, he's not really a prospect, but just him coming back. AJ Agazarm, Aaron Pico, Adam Borch, it's just littered full of really promising young talent.
Yeah, there's a lot of big prospects on that card. I mean, look at one guy, Brandon Bender, that hasn't fought in 6 years, fighting on this card at 12-1. There's all sorts of good ones. I mean, you can throw J.J. Wilson in that category, taking on Mario Navarra, kind of a bit of a tune-up fight. Ava Knight, somebody that they've been pushing a lot. Raymond Daniels, long in the tooth, especially with kickboxing career, but that's a guy that, again, he beat Stephen Thompson in kickboxing,
exactly.
So you never know. All sorts of top prospects there. We'll head into the chat here quick. What are your predictions for Bektic versus Dan Ige? Never watched Ige before. Heard he's a very exciting fighter that people heard. Big Dan Ige, guys.
He's so good.
Go back. If you want to see a good Dan Ige fight,
shame on.
I bring it on all the time. Julio Arce. I wish they could fight every single weekend. That was a great fight. Dan Ige is a really fun guy to watch. He's a dominance MMA guy, so say what you will, but he's got a great stable to train around as well, and a fun fighter to watch. So for sure, watch his fights. And Mirsad Bektic, is he still a prospect? I mean, he seems to beat the guys he should beat and lose to the guys he should lose to, except for Darren Elkins.
Okay, he's a bit of a glass cannon. I don't think I'm being controversial with that. Bektic is really good at everything. He's a phenomenal wrestler, gets on top, really good ground pound. He just does not accept damage all that well. And I know Josh Emmett's a big power puncher, but he basically put him out with a jab, so that's something you really got to watch out for. And Dan Ige is so explosive. He kind of reminds me of a younger Joe Lozon. He's just good at everything. One of the violence champs of the UFC, if you ask me. So that's going to be a phenomenal fight. That's got Fight of the Night written all over it.
Yeah, the other question that's in there, too, from Marv, do we think Cyphers is going to get finished? I don't think she's going to get finished in this fight. I made a mistake in one of the videos and said, Her and Macy Barber was at 125. It was at 115. It was a slip of the mind, but that was the last time she got finished. And I mean, you look at the other finishes, Jillian Robertson. Jillian Robertson's a better fighter at 125, and somebody that I picked to beat Macy Barber there. And Heather Jo Clark, it was a decision. Do I think she's going to get finished? No. I don't think she's
with no finishing.
I don't think she's going to get knocked out. And Angela Hill, a lot of people said this too. Angela Hill is obviously a striker. Matt kind of alluded that she might not be, and she might use some different tools in her arsenal.
She's just not like amazing at any one thing. And I don't mean that as a positive. Like, RDA is not really good at any one thing. He's just great at everything. Angela Hill doesn't really have an area where she's overly dominant.
For Angela Hill to win, though, like you're kind of alluding to, she has to throw the kitchen sink at Hannah Cyphers because you know that Cyphers, her boxing ability is just that good.
She's more jacked than both of us combined.
Yeah, Hannah Cyphers. Looking forward to that. Marv also said Julia Budd wins, she can retire happy for sure. And Tushar hitting on Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder too. We are not boxing guys, although the logo suggests not boxing guys.
And I'm so biased towards Deontay Wilder, it's not even funny. So I'm going to say he knocks out Tyson Fury, but it's probably not happening.
I'm going to go with Tyson Fury on that one. Now, if we continue along to title implications on either of these cards, it's kind of tough to predict because there's not any one fight that makes me say, hey, there's a title on the line, especially with Bellator. With Bellator, there isn't. I mean, Caldwell Borch is in the quarterfinals of the Grand Prix. Pettis Khashakyan, maybe, but there's nobody at 135. So that would be my likely pick. Maybe the winner of that fights for the title against Patchy Mix.
Maybe
they make that.
And that could be fun.
And then Archuleta Corrales, they're out of the Grand Prix, so you have to wait. So it's interesting if you look at the Bellator card. There's nobody that really sticks out to me. Is there?
No, I think it's more with the ESPN card. With the main event especially, Curtis Blades, Junior Santos, they're both definitely behind Francis Ngannou. It was kind of crazy he's knocked out both these guys 3 times combined. But he's got the next title shot no matter what. But I feel like if Curtis Blades wins this fight, he's going to have, like, he might have to wait a while, but he'll kind of be next in line. You know what I mean? Like, if Francis fights for the title next, he'll be the next guy in line, and they probably won't make him fight again. He will take a fight, I'm sure, in that time. But, yeah, the winner of that main event is probably one fight away from the title.
That's the closest. That's the closest fight that has any direct title implications. RDA Chiesa doesn't. Espinoza Perez is probably the next likely one, but even then, you got Benavidez and Figueiredo coming up. And there's guys like Brandon Moreno or Askar Askarov that are already, kind of knocking on the door, and they fought more recently.
Yeah.
So
Moreno's fighting for Megan. I would assume that's a title eliminator.
Exactly. So now we get into your fight night picks. We want to hear from you in the chat. If you have any burning questions, I know Marv asked, will Curtis Blades, Khabib, Dos Santos tonight? When was the last time Junior Dos Santos got taken down in a fight that you can remember? Been a while.
Cain Velasquez 2 and 3, and then the first Stipe fight. Here's my problem: like those 3 fights that I just listed off, he took more damage in each one of those fights than some people take in their whole career. And I know he beat Stipe in their first fight, but a lot of people don't remember that. It's one of the greatest heavyweight fights of all time. Like, go back and watch it. Stipe was really young in his career, but he tried to sort of replicate the Cain Velasquez game plan, which is your pressure, pressure, pressure. If I get tired, I get tired. And at that point, Stipe didn't have the cardio that he does now, so he did get tired later on, but he put on an amazing performance. And Curtis Blades has better wrestling than Stipe Miocic and Cain Velasquez. And I never thought I'd say that, but when you just look at the power double legs, he kind of wrestles more like a Chael Sonnen than a Cain Velasquez. Because Cain will get you up against the cage, dirty box, dirty box, dirty box, and they'll take you down when he gets the chance to. Curtis Blades just basically goes in there, power double leg, gets into a dominant position, and ground and pound, ground and pound, ground and pound. But the problem is, it takes him a while to start like passing from full guard to half guard. Like, the first 2 or 3 takedowns is going to be a little boring. He just kind of lays there for a little bit, figures out what he can get away with on the ground, and then he starts to improve position. So it might take him a couple rounds to get get going. But I think it's a phenomenal fight. I'm really excited because Junior Dos Santos always has that like one punch power that you have to worry about. No matter how good you are, how wrestling heavy you are, how good a striker you are, you really have to worry about the power of Junior Dos Santos. So I think it's a phenomenal fight. It's going to be really good.
Oliver Sell saying, would you say that the featherweight division is an exciting division in the UFC right now? So many prospects, Edgar, Aldo, Moicano gone. Expect the prospects to take those spots quickly. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Kind of reminds me of middleweight too. It's a tough division. Once you're up the top, it's really tough to try and crack it. And there's a lot of guys that, are they active? Are they not? You've got, like you said, Aldo, throw another guy in there like Frankie Edgar, which he did as well. What's the point? So it'll be interesting to see who moves up, who moves down. You've got some interesting prospects, like right off the top of my head, a guy like Chrome Gracie. When he fights Cub Swanson, he loses, but he still has that aura around him. Is this a guy that can get a few wins? There's a lot of different guys in that division.
And it was a good thing that you brought up Cronin. It was one of those rare instances where, like, a prospect can lose and still gain stock in a loss because he fought a guy that he really didn't belong to be in there with. I know he was the favorite, people were really high on him, but the fact that he went 3 hard rounds with Cub Swanson and basically struck with him the whole entire time, it was really impressive. So it's a great division. I would say probably lightweight talent-wise is a little bit better than featherweight. It's just they're not nearly as active as the featherweights are, and there's not really a clear path to the title like there is at 145. So I would say 155 or 145, but they're both phenomenal divisions. UFC is in a great spot right now, really.
They really are, and Bellator really trying to. They're hot on their tail. Remember back last year? I heard this on a show here recently. Remember back last year when One Championship signing a deal with Turner Sports? They were going to be on TNT. They were going to make a push into the U.S. market. It was like One Championship's that next Bellator. And they're coming after the UFC. What happened? Absolutely nothing. So now Bellator, they've been there the whole time. Espinoza with Viacom and Showtime. You've still got Coker making moves. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. That's why we're still talking about them. I mean, we're watching this event, 238, above the UFC. You have the UFC starting right now from Raleigh, North Carolina. A lot of interesting moves and things going on. Matt, any parting thoughts? Do you have any fight night picks to throw out there?
I think it's going to be a great night of fights. Definitely try to watch Bellator and UFC if you can, but don't forget about Bellator. I know they're the smaller organization, but they definitely have the better card, at least this evening, so definitely check them both out. It's going to be a great night of fights.
Should be a great night of fights. And Matt, again, featherweight, younger division, yes.
Oh, I agree 100%. It's got more prospects in the top 5, but I still feel like just talent-wise, I mean, you got to look. Tony Ferguson, Khabib, Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, like Justin Gaethje. Like, there's not many divisions that have that kind of a top 5 where any guy can be champ on any given day. I understand Khabib's better than most of them, but still, they're just all so talented and so good.
And now, let's kind of shift a bit and focus on what's ahead. So, next weekend, you have no UFC. You don't have Bellator until the end of the next month. So, it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out. The next UFC event is February 8th, you have UFC 247 with Jones and Reyes. What we're going to do is we're going to put our picks out at the end of next week. So you're going to be able to find those on Thursday of next week. You'll have a full week and a little bit ahead of that. Marv says his case are going to get rocked.
More likely than not.
In a certain way, he will. So that's what we're going to do. February 8th, yeah, you've got Jones and Reyes. We're going to be covering NEF 42 from Portland, Maine. Lots of great fights on that card. Lots of pro fights, too, which is always good to see. There are 24 fights scheduled for that night. And the main event, Bruce Boynton, he's your CES featherweight champ. He's going to be competing there, former NEF guy, for the lightweight title against none other than Manny Bermudez.
Former bantamweight fighting at lightweight.
Who went 3-2 in the UFC, won 3 straight, and then lost 2, and had a hard time making weight, so they cut ties. But still, Manny Bermudez stepping in for his teammate Josh Grisby, who was not allowed out of state to compete for it. The parole board said no. So I'm looking forward to the fight. Manny Bermudez is one hell of a fighter, and a guy that I wish we could have seen more of Manny Bermudez in the UFC. So that's what we're going to be doing. Also, I want to thank everybody out there. We reached well over 1,000 subscribers last weekend. You can notice it from the channel. There's already a few changes. We've got the community tab now. We're going to be doing a lot more different things as well. And yeah, you probably saw it too with the shirt, the Fight Night picture. We're going to have a giveaway and a contest for everybody that's joined the team, really. Yeah. So we're going to throw that out there. I'm going to be gone for a week as well, but we're going to have content throughout, and we're still going to be posting things, so make sure you check that out. And yeah, I'm going to be down in Miami for Super Bowl Sunday, so it should be a lot of fun. You can find me in South Beach if you're looking. And yeah, looking forward to a great weekend of fights. You're not going to want to miss UFC Raleigh, Bellator 238 with Fight Night picks. Also, check out our live tweeting over on Twitter with @CraigAllenFNP and @MattAllenFNP. Matt, big weekend of fights.
Oh, yeah.
You know what we like to say.
Let's get in.
It's time
for 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here's your host, Craig Allen.